Bills Mafia, what's going on? Happy Saints Week Friday. As always, on Fridays, I am joined by my good friend, Papa Ron, as we like to call him here, Ron Eastman. We're going to break down how the Bills should win this game, and they should not have a hiccup. There should be no issues on Sunday. The Bills are absolutely a dominant team compared to the Saints. So, first and foremost, Friday, Papa Ron, how we feeling, man?
We are good. It's end of the week. It's the weekend for me. I have Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays off, so it's gonna be a busy week though. Like I told you earlier, my daughter's getting married next week, so we got a lot going on. But it's good. It's good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's Friday before a game that the Bills should have in the bag. And I hate saying that because I don't like talking about trap games, obviously, which is the title of the show, but I don't like letdown games. I don't like the term play down to your opponent. I've been talking all week, and again, tomorrow night I'll be live with Akeem on Billsology, but we're going to talk about how this just should be a win. Um, it was a 16.5 point spread. It's come down to a 15.5 point spread. And like Ron was telling me off air, could have something to do with Oliver and Milano being out, which I think we all had anticipated this was the game. If they're not right yet, let them sit this one out because I feel like the
Yeah.
Bills can handle business without those two guys. And the Milano stuff, and let's start there because Matt Milano's injury to me has been kind of masked and disguised a little bit. We're not getting the typical updates that we usually get. Like Ed Oliver, we've seen, the Bills media guys are posting videos of him at practice walking around, doing things like that. We haven't seen a ton of that from Milano. So on a concern level for Matt Milano, they haven't put him on IR, so that's a good sign. What's your concern level with Matt Milano as far as is this a lingering thing? Could this be long term? But like, what's your thoughts on Matt Milano's injury overall?
It's interesting because it's a pec injury, I believe, but they haven't really said more than that. Like what kind of injury
Right.
is a strain, a tear, a pull? Who knows? I remember a couple years ago, Daquan Jones had a great start to the season. I think 2 or 3 weeks into it, he tore his pec
Yeah.
and he was gone for weeks. And then when he did come back, he wasn't the same still. That's my concern with Milano. The fact that they haven't put him on IR yet, though, maybe it's not that. It would be nice if they would share a little bit more, but uh, man, at this point in his career, he's on the last season of his contract that they renewed or renegotiated, whatever, this past off season. I hate to say this. I love Milano. I'm kind of ready to move on, to be honest. Like it does no good if you can't get on the field. I don't care how good you are. If you can't play, what use are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those the old sayings like we love you as a person, we love what you've done for this franchise. He's
Yeah,
absolutely when 100% healthy, he was one of the most dominant linebackers in the NFL. But I think I'm right there with you. I feel like this is something that every season we just kind of we cross our fingers and hope that he's going to be healthy week in and week out, and it hasn't been that way, and it's unfortunate because he's a hell of a talent and he's a
yeah.
perfect linebacker for McDermott's system. So Oliver, I'm not overly concerned with. Again, the injury was somebody stepped on his foot in practice a few weeks back. I think that the team's probably taking it, just being cautious, and McDermott seems to be he tends to weigh on the cautious side of injuries and not trying to rush guys back. So this is a game that I feel like we have enough depth where I don't believe he would be needed. Would we like to have him out there every week? Of course, absolutely. 17 games at Oliver would be a perfect scenario. But if this is a get right game for the injuries, um, this is definitely one where Ed Oliver can obviously just get better, rest up, and then we can have him next week for the Patriots. So let's talk about the other injuries that McDermott did touch on in his press conference today. He didn't give us a lot of information today, which is typical McDermott,
Shocker.
right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's like
yeah.
par for the course with McDermott, right? So AJ Epinesa is questionable and Spencer Brown is questionable. I bring up AJ Epinesa because we talked offline. Is this a possibility where they get some playing time for Landon Jackson? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm glad you brought that up because I would love to see Landon Jackson get some play time. And the reason being, going back to the Oliver situation, I'm okay right now with him on the sidelines because that means TJ Sanders and Deion Walker are getting more play time than they would. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. So the same thing with Landon Jackson. I do find it interesting that he's still a weekly inactive, a healthy scratch. Don't know why. We don't know if is he struggling with the defensive scheme? Is he struggling with, um, I mean, who knows? But I would love for him to get out there and get some play time. And in this particular game, I was looking at the Saints numbers a little while ago. They throw the ball an average of 40 times a game, but yet they're just under 200 yards passing. This is a great opportunity for our young guys to get out there and really work on their pass rushing skills. The Saints like to throw it around, and I think this could be a good breakout opportunity for guys like Landon Jackson and some of these other younger players.
Yeah, I feel, and we'll get back to the injury side of things in a minute, but I feel like this is and I feel like a broken record for 3 weeks now. I feel like this is a Greg Rousseau game because of how many attempts. And if you can boat race this team and get them into a one-dimensional style of offense, let your edge rushers just pin their ears back and just go to work. And like you said, if this is a time where you can get out to a lead and it's the third quarter and you don't need Joey Bosa and you don't need Greg Rousseau out there all the time, maybe this is a time where you can get Landon Jackson in there and get some reps, not just in the past, but if it's a game that's out of hand in the fourth quarter, I don't feel like the Saints are going to be throwing the ball around. They're going to probably be just running their offense, trying to just go through the motions, and maybe you see what he has to offer even in the run game. So going back to the injuries, Maxwell Hairston's injury is becoming very, I don't want to say it's weird, but Sean McDermott's comments earlier this week did not help the situation as far as what we're all trying to figure out as content creators and part of the Bills media. He said he could be back or he couldn't, basically. So a lot of us were scratching our heads saying, what does that mean exactly? And Sean McDermott doesn't typically, like I just alluded to earlier, he doesn't typically give you anything. Like he just tries to keep you guessing. Again, obviously, I think he does that because he doesn't want to get hopes up. He doesn't want to give you false information, yada, yada, yada. But after I saw that in his presser, I'm like, that's interesting. He's probably going to be redshirted and he's probably not going to play this season. But then yesterday, I see all these videos of Maxwell Hairston running around in practice, barely showing any signs of, wear and tear on that knee. And he looked fairly decent. Now, he's not allowed to practice, I think, until next week, technically with pads and all that stuff. But he's been doing drills and things like that. So what's your thoughts on the Bills' cornerback position? Because to me, I was a little concerned about Tre'Davious White against the Dolphins. Now, he's trying to cover two of the fastest receivers in the NFL in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I understand. But we haven't seen as much that we thought we would of Dorian Strong. This stuff with Maxwell Hairston seems to be kind of ramping up. Jamarcus Ingram's in there. So anybody across from Benford. So what's your thoughts on the cornerback room and especially Maxwell Hairston?
I think the quick and short answer for McDermott is I don't know. I honestly don't think they know yet. So to your point, they're not going to say something that may not prove to be accurate. They don't want to give any false hopes out there. And I think too, if you position things in such a way that makes it sound like they're coming back, I do think that inadvertently puts a little pressure on the player. Like, oh crap, they expect me to be getting back soon. So maybe I need to ramp up my effort, which could then, of course, cause a setback. So I hope that he can get in the game. For me personally, looking at the situation, I was kind of eyeing week 9-ish, around like basically the Chiefs game, for a full ramp up of him and potentially getting back on the field. I think week 9 is when we can really start to see what this defense as a whole can look like, because you get Michael Hoyt back, Ogunjobi is back. The two defensive tackle rookies have half a season under their belt. There's a lot that can transpire between now and week 9 that I think could benefit the team. And I think if we don't see Hairston by then yeah, I think maybe they hang it up for the season with him.
Yeah, which is which is not ultimately what you want to see from a first round pick, but I'd rather he gets 100% right instead of
Yeah, absolutely.
trying to force him out there. And you could tell he's not going to be right from the jump, on top of the fact that the Bills currently are, I guess, technically in a 3-way tie for the 1 seed. If you want to give it to the Colts, fine. If you want to give it to the Chargers, fine. But I've said all along, I don't care who's on the schedule. I don't care how bad the teams are. They just need to keep stacking wins.
Yeah.
And I think the mantra from Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, and even Josh Allen to an extent, has said, we want the 1 seed. We want the AFC Championship to run through Buffalo in Orchard Park. And I think if you're trying to accomplish those things, schematically, you're not going to try to just work a guy into the rotation. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to go with what's working. Now, obviously, if they're having issues at CB2, you see how he's practicing. If it looks like he's good, then you try to get him in there with some reps. But I don't know. To me, Sunday's game, I want it to be just forceful. I want the Bills to just show their dominance. And I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I want this to be a Sean McDermott make a statement game, because we thought that was going to happen against the Dolphins because of how bad their secondary was. We thought, okay, the Ravens game, it's going to be, it's going to be a dogfight. The Jets game was the Jets game. It was a disaster. So I feel like if you look at this team on paper against the New Orleans Saints on paper, in every aspect of the rosters, the Bills are just better quarterback. I think James Cook is better than Alvin Kamara at this point in his career. Sure, they have Chris Olave and a couple other decent receivers, but I think the Bills' skill position players are better. The Bills' offensive line, I think, is playing better. I feel like the Bills' defensive line, say what you want about third down and getting off the field and run defense, I still feel like the Bills' defense is better than the Saints. And then we don't even want to talk, I don't know, about how bad the Saints were this past weekend special teams. They had a punt blocked. They missed a field goal bad. They had a 95-yard punt return for a touchdown, a 65-yard kickoff return that was almost a touchdown. So to me, where does it start for you? Like, what's your mindset looking at this game? Because the NFL's week to week, right? We always have these weird weeks where a team that's really good, case in point, the Packers and the Browns last week. Now, I understand the Browns defense is really good, and that was in Cleveland, but that game, the Packers lost that game. So this isn't on that level. I think this is a little bit more of a David versus Goliath thing. But what's your initial thoughts about this game? And, how can it not be a letdown? How can the Bills just come through, do business, handle things, and go home? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think getting the running game going obviously is important, and that's always front and center in my mind. You want to establish a dominance in the trenches, right? And that starts with the offensive line. It starts with the defensive line on both sides of the ball. The Saints defense is only allowing 3.6 yards per carry, so that's pretty good. But they also haven't gone up against James Cook in this offensive line, which is one of the best in the league. And then you throw in Josh Allen running around too. I think this defense can be scored on, obviously. When you look at it on paper, there's really no reason why the Bills should not dominate this game and have it closed up by halftime. But we've seen it already this year in 3 games that's not always the case. Dominated the Jets. Probably should have had more points against the Jets, to be honest. And then we struggled against the Dolphins, even though it was ultimately a 2-score win, late field goal kind of situation. That's the only thing with the Bills offense. Yes, I know they've put up 30+ every game. They look fantastic and, all of that. But there seems to be some lulls here and there in the game. If they can avoid that against the Saints and just go down and score and put up some points, and as you said earlier, force the Saints to be one-dimensional and have to put the ball up in the air, then maybe the defensive front can get after Spencer Rattler and create some havoc there and put this game away early.
Yeah, I think the mismatch is Spencer Rattler versus Sean McDermott. I feel like Sean McDermott, typically against young quarterbacks that are inexperienced, he has a way to mask things, either whether it's in coverage, whether it's in the second level, to just confuse the quarterbacks. I feel like this should be a game where the Bills should not have any issue scoring points. They haven't had any issue scoring points, it seems like, all season. Yes, it started off a little choppy against the Ravens, and they had to fight back in that one. But as sloppy as the Bills played against the Dolphins, I still feel like they left a ton of points on the field. Like, when it was 14-7 and they were driving, and whatever that play call was on third down that got Josh sacked, there was missed assignments everywhere. I don't know what that was, but they looked like they were driving right down the field on that drive, and it was going to be 21-7. Then you missed the field goal, then Miami has a 17-play drive. And that to me is, show me that your defense can get the opposing team off the field, especially on third down. Now, the Bills did do that to the Dolphins, but then when the Dolphins needed a drive, they were able to convert third downs. That drive before the half, they had
That was so frustrating.
5 third down conversions. You had them in third and long several times on that drive. And that, to me, and I'm sure Bills fans are sick of hearing about get off the field on third down because we couldn't do it all last year. So to me, one of my keys to this game is Bobby Babich needs to show me something this game. Your team, offensively, defensively, should just impose their will on this team. It is a bad team. I understand the first couple games, it was a one-score game and they had the ball with a chance to win, but the rails came off completely against the Seahawks. Like, that game was just, I think it was 28-3 at early in the second quarter, just because things got away from them. But like I said, this needs to be a Bobby Babich. Show me that you know how to make adjustments. Show me that you've been practicing all this stuff up front on your front four, and like you said, maybe this is a time where we see Landon Jackson. Maybe this is a time where we see more from Greg Rousseau. Joey Bosa has been the only constant, besides Ed Oliver, who's out now, but Joey Bosa has been the only constant that has been, playing up to par on that defensive line, and he can't do it all. So, again, what's your thoughts on? Let's talk about Bobby Babich for a minute. What's your thoughts on Bobby Babich? Because 2 years ago, I feel like the Bills' defense was a lot more aggressive, and that was, of course, when Sean McDermott was the defense. He was calling defensive plays. Last year, he gave up the reins to Bobby Babich, and I feel like the defense regressed last year. Now, there was some turnover. We had a rookie safety. A bunch of other stuff happened. But now this is Bobby Babich's second full year. He's been with McDermott for 9 years. This is his 9th season with McDermott. He's taking him under his wing. So what's your thoughts on Bobby Babich? Does he need to show you something this week?
He does. It is difficult, though, at the same time, because you have to ask the question that he had the unfortunate, I guess, situation of taking over as a DC without Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And I think those two really changed the defense during their prime. And we heard guys like even Tom Brady's talking about that's probably the best duo, and how they disguise coverages so well and they're so interchangeable. It's really difficult to figure them out. We don't have that now. Yeah. Can Cole Bishop get to that? Maybe. I don't know. I think he has been playing better as of late, and I do anticipate him to continue to grow in that role. But it's really hard to say. I guess opinion on Babich is a kind of a wait and see situation. I feel like if they can't get pressure with that front four like they want to do, and that's McDermott's kind of mantra, then start bringing some more blitzes, but don't bring Cole Bishop 20 yards in the defensive backfield on the blitz. That just doesn't work. But let's talk about Rousseau for a minute. I know you brought his name up a couple of times.
Oh, he's my favorite Bills defensive end. Everybody knows he's my favorite Bills defensive end.
Yeah. I've held out hope for him year after year, offseason after offseason. Like, okay, this is going to be it. Defensive guys, especially on the defensive line, 2, 3, 4 years in, that's when you start to really see the progression. Yeah. We're not seeing that with Rousseau. Right. I think at this point, Rousseau is who he is, and that's a good run defender. That's it.
I hate to agree with you, but I've been pounding the table about Greg Rousseau for 2 years now. Like, yeah. I get what the going rate and the market rate is for a starting caliber defensive end / edge rusher in the NFL. I get it. It's $20 million a year. I get it. For a top 20 to top 15 edge defender, I understand what the salary is. I understand what comes along with that, but I also understand that he's being outplayed by a guy who's making $7 million less than him a season, and a guy who has injury concerns and things like that. And Joey Bosa's doing things. And I understand Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau are not the same player. I understand that. They're two completely different edge rushers. But Greg Rousseau has been non-existent for 3 weeks. And for the last 2 weeks, leading up to the games, I've been saying, this feels like a Greg Rousseau game. Bad offensive line. This feels like a Greg Rousseau game. Bad offensive line. And we haven't gotten the Greg Rousseau chunk, I get sacks and bunches type game that he had throughout his career. He has games where he has 2 or 3. He looks like he can't be stopped. He's a force. And then he kind of goes away for a few games. And I've always compared
too.
100%. And I've always compared Greg Rousseau to Gabe Davis because whenever we were looking for Gabe Davis, we could not find him. When we stopped looking for Gabe Davis, he would do magical things. I feel like that's the same with Greg Rousseau. Like we're watching him and we're overanalyzing him and it's just not happening. Now I understand last week he did play okay. He had some pressures. He played okay. But for my starting edge defender that we just shelled out a 4-year contract extension to, that Brandon Beane basically told everybody he's part of the core. He's going to be here. We love this guy on this in this franchise. He's just not cutting it for me. And I don't want to sit here and like say that it's because he needs better tackle play next to him, or he needs another guy opposite of him that's warranting more, offensive linemen or double teaming. He's got Joey Bosa, who's playing really well. So I don't know if Joey Bosa's taking the double teams and they're chipping on him. But either way, he should be going to work and he's not. So we have to wait and see, I guess. But like you said, I feel like, and I said this back in when free agency started in March and they were starting to hand out the extensions, I said, we know his ceiling. I feel like everybody that's trying to sell me this bag of magic beans that Greg Rousseau is going to turn into this 12-sack guy and he's going to be one of these elite pass rushers. I think we've seen it for 4 years. We've seen him be an 8.5-sack guy, really good in the run defense when we need him to be, and that's about it. So I don't know. It's very interesting to me. So let's go back to the offensive. Excuse me. Let's go back to the offensive side of the ball because I've seen a couple comments talking about the offensive line, and we kind of touched on Spencer Brown at the start. He said he's good to go. Apparently, he said to numerous people that he's good to go. So I don't know if it's going to be Ryan Vandermark, if it's going to be Chase Lunt. What's your thoughts at right tackle going into a game where we know the Bills are going to want to run the ball? What's your thoughts there?
I'm not really concerned whether Brown plays or not, and this is going to sound knock on wood. The Saints just aren't a good team, and I think if you're in a situation with an injury and you're playing a team like the Saints, I know the whole adage, any given game day or whatever, but I would rather him sit and make sure he's good, like 100% good, because we still have some tough games coming up. There's still some divisional opponents, which they're not particularly good either. But still, we got the Chiefs coming up, who by that point, they will probably have Worthy and Rashee Rice back. That can completely change what their offense looks like right now. Of course, we have the Eagles coming up. If there's any question whatsoever right now, I would rather have them sit and get some of these other guys on the field, whether it's Vandermark or Chase Lunt. It doesn't matter to me. And one of the things I was looking, again, going back to some of these numbers, the Saints, they're allowing 7.6 yards per pass, which is 23rd in the league, and over 70% completion rate. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's where, this is that kind of type of game that if Josh Allen and the Bills want to push the ball down the field, they can, and maybe they can get a quick lead on them and take some of the pressure off of the backups at the right tackle position, or take some of the pressure off of some of these other young players. But at the end of the day, like I said, if there's any question, I would rather they sit and get the young guys out there on the field, give them some snaps, because that's all going to pay dividends in the end.
I agree 100%. You brought up a good point there, because this has been a hot topic, and I've talked about it. I know a lot of other content creators and the Bills media guys have been talking about it. Why are the Bills not pushing the ball down the field? Is it because they don't want to? They want to control the clock. They want to give Josh high percentage plays? Because there's a lot of back and forth in the Bills community about whether the Bills have the skill position players to push the ball down the field, because a lot of the comments that I saw during the Dolphins game was that nobody was getting open downfield, so therefore Josh was not taking shots downfield against a depleted secondary of the Miami Dolphins. So is it the fact that Joe Brady just doesn't want to do that until he has to? Or is it the fact that the Bills are just, they've become this controlled, no turnover, high percentage plays, like don't fix it if it's not broken. It worked all last year. We're still scoring 30 points. Because Josh Allen even came out and said, he was asked in a presser a couple days ago, and he said, look, I don't mind taking what's given. I don't mind dumping it off to Shakir and letting him do the work. I don't mind dumping it off to Elijah Moore or Palmer or Kincaid and just letting them do the work after. So what's your thoughts kind of there, how this offense is evolving, now it being, I guess, 17 regular season games, the postseason, and then the first 3 games this year with Joe Brady's offense?
I don't mind it. For years, we've harped on Allen about limiting the turnovers, and now he's limited those turnovers. What was it, 1 turnover in the last 12 games compared to 30 touchdowns? Like, this offense is still scoring points at a historic rate, right? They're still statistically one of the best offenses in football right now. Last season, Khalil Shakir was second in yak yards to only chase Jamar Chase. This year, you've got Elijah Moore, who's pretty good at doing that. You've got Joshua Palmer, who I think is pretty good at doing that. They have the pieces that they can just go short routes and dump it off to them and pick up 6, 7, 8, 10 yards. But I go back to the Ravens game. It seemed like early in that game, they were doing a lot of that same thing. When they needed it, though, they were pushing the ball downfield. Coleman was getting open downfield. I really think it's more of a schematic situation than what defenses are doing to the Bills or trying to do to them. One of the stats that I saw with the Bills is Josh Allen's, I think, average yards traveled per pass, the 2 lowest of his career, both against the Dolphins. It's something schematically that the Dolphins are doing that are forcing his hand in that way. And I would rather have 3-yard passes that turn into a 6-yard pass than have the turnovers that we've seen from Allen in the past. I'd much rather see what we're seeing now.
Yeah, it's starting to turn into, the debate is starting to turn into Josh Allen has become a game manager. And then the Bills fans will say, well, we have this Ferrari. Like, why are we driving 30 in the right lane on the highway when we have this Ferrari? But we have to remember, we go back to the Brian Daboll days where he constantly just wanted to push the ball down the field. And Sean McDermott and Brian Daboll were always at each other because McDermott wanted to run the ball. And I feel like now that McDermott has Brady, he's got his guy that, Brady loves running the ball and doing all these exotic looks to where you can't tell if it's a run play or a pass play. So I don't know. If it's there, Josh is going to take it. If it's not there, I feel like we've seen Josh admit that every offseason he tries to fix something, right? He tries to, whether it's mechanics, whether it's anticipation, whether it's how he throws the ball, whatever it is. And I feel like before last season, Joe Brady and Josh Allen got on the same page as far as like, look, you can't be taking these risks. You just can't. We are such a well-established offense that you're trending in the direction of elite status if you can just bring the turnovers down. And that's where Everybody Eats was born. I feel like Everybody Eats came from just throw the ball to whoever's open. If it's going to be like week 1, it was Coleman. He had the big game. Week 2, it was kind of spread out, all over the place. Week 3, same thing. And what's really nice to see is that Dalton Kincaid, yards per target or yards per routes run, Dalton Kincaid leads all tight ends, which I think to all Bills fans is something that they've wanted to hear for a really long time. So, all right, let's do a couple, keys to the game, I guess, real quick. Like I said at the top of the show, I don't want to go into this game and overlook the Saints, but I also realize that this Bills team is better than the New Orleans Saints. They just are. And this needs to be a game where they just need to put the foot on the throat and just, from the opening to the end, they need to prove that they're better. So what's a couple keys to the game for you, for the Bills to get a win?
Get up early and limit turnovers. It's really that simple. I think if you can get up on them early, kind of crush the soul a little bit, get up 14-21 really quick. And like I said, limit the turnovers, which we expect will probably happen. However, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but was it 25 straight games where they won the turnover battle? That's going to end.
I don't even like to think about that out loud, because stats are stats for a reason. Streaks are streaks for a reason. They always have to come to an end at some point, but maybe it's not this week.
Yeah. I mean, if this was any, I don't want to say any other team, but if it wasn't the Saints, again, limit your turnovers. If they can win the turnover battle again, which I expect that they probably will, and get up an early lead, then it should be all downhill from there.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it should be rinse, repeat, move on. Whatever we did against the Jets, this is the same type of vibe I have for this game. Just, it's at home, where you haven't lost since 2023 in the regular season anyways. I think it's 13 straight regular season home wins. And the only loss that's in there is the divisional game against the Chiefs from two postseasons ago. So to me, it's like, you're at your place. You should feel comfortable. The fans are going to be crazy. You have Josh Allen, you have James Cook, you have an offensive line. Even I feel like without Spencer Brown, you have a very serviceable backup right tackle. And knowing Spencer Brown, he's going to play because he's a warrior. And I feel like this needs to be a defensive statement game. You need to stop the run. Alvin Kamara is not Alvin Kamara of 4 or 5 years ago. He's just not. He's getting older. There's more tread on the tires. I don't believe in the Saints coaching staff. I don't think that they have a plan. They have been in cap hell for the last couple of years because of all the stuff that happened, a few years back. And I think they're just trying to piecemeal stuff together to try to be competitive, and they haven't been. So to me, it's just don't make mistakes, get some turnovers, and score some points. It sounds easy, but that's what they should do. The way that they came out and played the Jets, obviously minus Josh fracturing his nose, just that's how you should play. Get them off the field, go down and score points. Get them off the field, make their quarterback extremely uncomfortable, go down and score points. Control the clock and take home a W. So you got a score prediction before we head out of here real quick?
I will. Really quick, though. I just want to push back on I don't believe in the Saints coaching staff. I'm a Boise State guy. You know this.
Oh,
I got to root for my boy Kellen Moore to have a successful career, right? Just not this weekend.
Yeah.
But no, as far as the score prediction, I do think that Buffalo takes care of business and probably ends this game pretty quick. I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the second half a whole lot of running game. So I don't know that the Bills will necessarily put up 40 plus, but I'm going to say they win this thing 31 to let's go 31-13 Bills.
Yeah, I'm right around that 30. It seems really hard to not pick a Bills score without them scoring at least 30. And it's just crazy. And I don't want to go back and rehash this conversation about the Bills offense, but it's funny how everybody bitches about the Bills offense and about we're not going vertical and we don't have these speed, all-world beater wide receivers, but yet the Bills managed to get 400 yards of offense every week. They managed to score 30-plus points every week. Josh Allen is completing passes at a higher rate than he's ever completed this season. The team's not turning the ball over. He's taken a couple more sacks than I believe the pace was last year, but that's to be expected. Teams are going to do different things. But like I said, I think the Bills are going to score at least 30. And I don't want to sound arrogant because I know that this team's good, but I feel like this is a Mitch Trubisky fourth quarter game, just similar to the Jets game. And it's not because Josh Allen has his nose busted. I just feel like this team is too good. And this is a game, like I said, I want them to make a statement. Like, we are better than you. We're going to show you that we're better than you, and we're going to beat you in our house. You can't come in here without getting an ass whooping. That's just how I feel.
Yeah.
So I have the Bills 34. We'll say 34-17 when we'll throw in some garbage time points for the Saints there in the fourth quarter. So Papa Ron won't be with me next week. His daughter's getting married, so congratulations to him and his daughter. But he'll be back the week after that. I will be back tomorrow night with Bill Zalgi with my co-host Akeem. So this has been the Friday edition of First and Five for Papa Ron. I'm Dave Myers. As always, go Bills. Let's get that big win on Sunday, and we'll see you next time.
Go Bills.